into game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
But if it ends up being 1 versus 2, which seems likely because the Cavs have a 5.5 game lead over Boston, the Celtics 3 games clear of the New York Knicks.
They're not unstoppable, not running away with everything, but for them to blow a 5.5 game lead on the backstretch in the NBA, already being a quality team outside of disastrous injuries, I don't buy that at this time.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Hello and welcome to a Wednesday live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. A Wednesday morning to look back on a jam-packed Tuesday night slate in basketball. Around the association, only 4 games, but some history made in the NBA last night. It is the week before the All-Star break and the All-Star festivities in San Francisco this upcoming weekend. Where does the association stand? Well, past the halfway point of this season. Huge, monumental Tuesday night in college basketball. So many great games to break down, recap, and give our reactions to on this Wednesday. And Donnie, although it is fully now the offseason around the National Football League, the news and notes in the NFL does not stop. In fact, it never stops in Philadelphia, just a few days away from celebrating a Lombardi Trophy.
Absolutely. Still a lot to recap on the NFL. We'll certainly do that this morning. But also, as we pointed out yesterday, college basketball, you had 2 games that, maybe teams were looking ahead. Not the case. Auburn and Alabama handling their business. We'll get to that and much more. So good topics today on a Wednesday hump day as we head towards All-Star Weekend in the NBA.
The city of Philadelphia for the Super Bowl 59 parade projecting 1 million people to be there for the festivities. Will Donnie Rightside?
I will not be there. But by the way, I got a kick out of the last one in 2017, which you had to go to as the first one. It was a freezing cold day. It was a long day. But they told you, don't you dare try to drive into the city. There's going to be so many people there that everybody was forced to take mass transportation, which was horrendous. I took a car, got there in half of the time, found a great parking spot, walked right to the parade. So they're telling people once again that there's going to be so many people in the city. Do not drive your car. All the comments are, yeah, we're not falling for that again. We're driving.
Yeah, it should be a celebratory Valentine's Day on Friday in the city of brotherly love. But we start in the National Football League with now the former Eagles offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. It became official yesterday, a new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Kellen Moore, at the age of 36, now the head man in the Big Easy after leading Philadelphia's offense to a Super Bowl championship in New Orleans on Sunday. It's now his new home, and he's the new head coach of the Saints.
Yeah, and it feels good if you're the Saints as well, where you're waiting on this guy. What if it would have turned out if they played the Super Bowl, Ben, and the Eagles got hammered and couldn't move the football? Hey, not too much excitement coming to town, even though you know he's a talented young coordinator. Now you have a guy that came in and absolutely pulverized the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That is a great way to start, because when you're in the room as a young head coach and you can show that ring and say, you want an offense that actually moves at the speed of light and can score a lot of points in big moments, I am your guy. That's a big win for the Saints coming off of that big victory for the Philadelphia Eagles.
7 head coaching vacancies at some juncture of this NFL offseason. Now, officially, all of them have been filled. We'll talk about the situation with the Saints that Kellen Moore has the job of undertaking. We'll do that in just a little bit. Let's get to college basketball. Rinse, wash, repeat, DRS. Basically, every night the SEC is in action in men's basketball. There's at least one, if not multiple, top 25 tilts. We start in Lexington, inside Rupp Arena. Number 15, Kentucky, hosting number 5, Tennessee. The Cats, an underdog, where they have been very good this year. Catching 2.5 at home. Kentucky wins outright, 75-64. The Cats this year, 5-1, both straight up and against the number as an underdog this season.
I'll tell you too. You look at, again, 5 and 15 playing each other in the the national rankings. 10 combined conference losses between the two, which tells you how tough it is to win in the SEC. Like, the Volunteers are a top 5 team, 7-5 in their own conference. Kentucky now improves to 6-5. I actually thought this was going to be a game decided at the 3-point line, but more in Tennessee's favor. 3 of 18 from 3-point range on the road for Tennessee. Not going to be good enough to get it done. We know Kentucky can shoot the 3-point shot, but Tennessee's a great defensive team. How about 50% from the 3-point line at home for the Wildcats? That's the difference. Kentucky was the better team last night.
12 of 24 from deep for Mark Pope's Wildcats last night. Donnie, Kentucky entered yesterday as the second most efficient offense in the country. The Volunteers, the most efficient defense. Offense got the better of defense last night, despite a total staying under. A top 20 tilt in the Big Ten. Michigan at home in front of a sold-out Chrysler Center. Uses a second-half rally and holds on down the stretch to knock off 7th-ranked Purdue, 75-73. In the overnight hours, when I bet it, the Boilers were a 2.5-point dog. Ka-ching! At close, Michigan just a slight 1.5 favorite at home. They make good of that number.
Yeah, you take a look at the field goal percentages between both teams. Wasn't a big difference, Ben. Purdue, about 44%, and then you see right around 45% for the Michigan Wolverines. But the difference, look at the personal fouls. 23 for Purdue, only 11 for Michigan. So you go right to the free throw line. 6 of 8 for Purdue, which is, okay, you got to get to the line more than that. How about 18 of 26 for Michigan? Get to the free throw line, steal those free points, you come away with a victory. That's what happened last night.
The Boilermakers last night entered with the best record in the Big Ten at 11-2. Now that's the mark for Michigan. The Boilermakers' third loss in Big Ten play. Michigan State had an opportunity to leapfrog to the top of the standings once again alongside their in-state and bitter foes. And history on the line for Tom Izzo last night as the Spartans hosted Indiana as a double-digit home favorite inside the Breslin Center. But the Hoosiers stood in the way of all of that, pulling off the outright upset in East Lansing and winning a big game over Michigan State. Final score last night, 71-67. The Hoosiers prevail.
Hey, maybe the Hoosiers shouldn't be looking for a new coach now. They've actually been bad this year, but that's a rise-up situation on the road in the Big Ten. Comfortable victory. By the way, shot 3 of 13 from the 3-point line, and we're still able to pull away with a victory. Why? Because Michigan State, 4 of 23 from the 3-point line. Sometimes you live by it. Sometimes you die by it. Sometimes you see the other team just to be worse than you are, and that's what happened last night.
Tom Izzo had hopes of winning Big Ten game number 354 in his career to move past Bob Knight as the all-time leader in Big Ten history. Indiana had other ideas. Let's get to the NBA. The Memphis Grizzlies visiting the Valley last night against the Phoenix Suns. Memphis gets a victory on the road, 119-112. Kevin Durant makes some history, becoming the 8th player ever in history of the NBA to reach 30,000 points. He was the game's leading scorer, finishing with 34, but the Suns lose once again.
Absolutely. Yes, they did, is what I wanted to say here. And we picked it yesterday on the show. Say, give me the Memphis Grizzlies. I'll lay the points to the better team than the Phoenix Suns, and they proved it last night. All that talent and under 500 for the Suns.
The Grizz, a 4.5-point road favorite. They cover.
Yep.
Memphis, the best cover team in the country. In the NBA,
Hey.
the Suns, the worst covered team around the association. We saw that last night. All right, as we go now to elsewhere in the NBA, Brandon Ingram dealt ahead of the deadline up to the Great White North for the Toronto Raptors and inks an extension, 3-year, $120 million extension now with Toronto.
Yeah, the good part about being at the Super Bowl and working all week is I saw that headline, like, wow, that's interesting. Brandon Ingram is on the Raptors. So you learn something new every day, even from being on the show, Ben. Hey, look at that. He's a Raptor. Didn't know that.
DRS, you were in New Orleans. They traded Brandon Ingram away from the Pels, and now he is with the Raptors trying to bolster the roster around the young and talented star in Scotty Barnes. Some hot stove news in Major League Baseball. As pitchers and catchers are starting to report this week, it seems as though Clayton Kershaw will report soon for the LA Dodgers. Year number 18 for the 36-year-old who, based on injury, only started 7 games last year for the World Series champs.
And he'll probably start 7 or less this year because he's like the 10th best pitcher on that. So more of a mascot, and congratulations. We have so much money. We'll take you along for another World Series ride.
A 1-year deal for $10 million for the other team that's kind of in Los Angeles. Kenley Jansen, now the closer for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. DRS, anything for my hometown team?
Yeah, he's not going to get too many chances to close anything out in L.A., so can you enjoy the congratulatory retirement plan for Kenley out there.
A nice time to be in Southern California once again. We go to the NFL next.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
But if it ends up being 1 versus 2, which seems likely because the Cavs had a 5.5-game lead over Boston, the Celtics 3 games clear of the New York Knicks.
They're not unstoppable, not running away with everything, but for them to blow a 5.5-game lead on the backstretch in the NBA, already being a quality team outside of disastrous injuries, I don't buy that at this time.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Seven head coaching vacancies this offseason around the National Football League. And now, at the end of the 2024 NFL campaign, with a Super Bowl champion crowned in Philadelphia, with the game played in New Orleans, our 7th and final is now filled. What we expected to be the case became official yesterday. The Saints tabbing Kellen Moore as their new head coach, the 36-year-old offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles this past season, who won a Lombardi Trophy Sunday evening in New Orleans, will now make his new home in NOLA as the new head coach of the Saints.
Yeah, it's a good move for the Saints. It really is. We opened the show talking about this, and maybe the worst kept secret, Ben, over Super Bowl week, and certainly from 3 weeks previous, that it looked like the Saints were honing in on Kellen Moore. And rightfully so. Still a young guy, actually the youngest head coach in the National Football League as it stands now. And he does come from a pretty good pedigree. Was a very good college football player, rose up the ranks quickly. The only question for me is, how is he the Saints head coach and not the Dallas Cowboys head coach? It almost felt like he was the head coach in waiting that got squeezed out by Mike McCarthy because maybe the shine wasn't there and he wanted to call more plays. It almost has that feel of like Howie Roseman getting blocked out by Chip Kelly, only to come back as the saving grace as the general manager to have multiple Super Bowl championships in Philadelphia. You felt like Kellen was the perfect move to go back to Dallas because he knows what Dak wants to do. He's been with Dak Prescott, and you probably figure that Dak would have probably signed off on it, but they chose an in-house route, which quite puzzling. But for the Saints, I think it's a good move. And it's the same talking points come over. You want a coach coming in with pedigree. Hey, he's an up-and-comer. Yeah, that's fantastic. We don't know what he's going to do on the big stage. You get a lot of pressure in Dallas. Did he win a Super Bowl there? No. But his offenses were always in the top 10. He said, well, what did he do out when he went to the Chargers? Well, if you have the entire team injured during one season in a regime change, it's not going to work that well. Comes into a stacked Philadelphia Eagles roster and does very well throughout the season and had a great Super Bowl and playoff run here. That's a good move for the Saints, who now, again, can say, we have a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator now taking over our head coach, and he's 36. Hopefully he's here till he's 66 at that point.
Turns 37 years old this summer. Donnie, we'll get into the Saints situation, the job in New Orleans, and what exactly Kellen Moore is stepping into in the Big Easy in just a second. But he's only 36 years old. And maybe the name Kellen Moore is recognizable to you, not just as the OC in Philadelphia or the former offensive coordinator or quarterback in Dallas, but because he is a college football legend playing on the Smurf turf in the blue of Boise State. That's what Kellen Moore means to me, which is very funny because he actually played college football against potentially his new quarterback in Derek Carr when Carr was playing QB for Fresno State. Here is the career timeline for a 36-year-old about to become a first-time NFL head coach. Played in the National Football League for about 5 seasons as a quarterback. Quickly became the Cowboys quarterback coach in 2018. Served as the offensive coordinator for 4 years. And then when he was about to get demoted at the end of 2022 and Mike McCarthy took over play calling, he goes to L.A., as Donnie said, spent only a year in Los Angeles working under Brandon Staley. Everybody was injured. It wasn't a good year with the Bolts. Staley was fired before the year was through. Of course, you're going to change the coaching staff. Kellen Moore makes his way to Philadelphia, and in his only year in Philly, leads the Birds to one of the best offenses in the NFL. Resurgent on the ground with Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts pulls off one of the best performances of his career in the biggest game of his career and wins a Lombardi trophy. It is a pretty solid track record and career resume for Kellen Moore.
Absolutely. And that's what you can sell yourself on as a franchise that maybe we don't think is going to be all that great over the next 1 to 2 years, maybe clearing out from cap space, but it's a coach that's young enough where it's like, hey, man, I'm sick. Like, let's just say Pete Carroll goes there, as we will talk eventually there about the Vegas Raiders. And it's not that same type of setup. Like, hey, just guide us through this, light here, and maybe we'll be better off at the end of it. Like, no, you're expecting Kellen Moore to come in and maybe have a down year or two, but a long enough leash that says he's young. He'll still be learning on the job as a head coach. But once we get through this salary cap situation and find our quarterback, this is exactly the guy we want. And also, you want him there for as many years as possible. The good thing about picking a younger head coach is if he's good, boy, you can have a whirlwind over the next 10, 15, and 20 years, as long as the guy doesn't retire, go into the booth, or certainly doesn't work out in 2 to 3 years and gets fired. But I do like the move overall. And also, you're in a power spot for Kellen Moore. It was clear 2 weeks ago they wanted him, and it was the last coaching job available. So instead of the Saints going take it or leave it, 2 years and $6 million to be a head coach, he probably had a power position and goes, you know what? I know you want me. I want you. Let me finish this Eagles season out, and we'll come to an agreement on something that works out here where he's going to have a lot of say in that organization, which is a good thing.
And it's not why this move was very stunning yesterday, right? Because we knew that as the Saints were the only team still looking to hire a new head coach, and there were only 2 teams in the lead up to Super Bowl 59 that were still in action, that Kellen Moore was going to be the guy in New Orleans. Speaking of his time in L.A., working under Brandon Staley, more reports yesterday from ESPN's Adam Schefter. Staley, who spent the past year on the defensive side of the ball in San Francisco, expected to be Kellen Moore's new defensive coordinator in New Orleans. The Saints are an interesting team, DRS, a very passionate fan base, and for most of the last 2 decades, a very stable franchise at that. Mickey Loomis, the general manager, has been there for more than 2 decades. But because of that at times, it almost feels like the front office is not refreshed or focused on the future. Kellen Moore walks into a situation where the Saints under Sean Payton were constantly in the playoffs, constantly winning the NFC South. Heck, winning Lombardi trophies as well. The Saints had won 4 consecutive NFC South divisional crowns in 4 of the final 5 years for Sean Payton. His last year in the Big Easy, DRS, in the 3 that Dennis Allen was the head coach, of course, fired midway through 2024. 4 consecutive years now for the Saints, missing out on the postseason. It is not exactly the most optimistic of landing spots for a first-time head coach.
No, it's not. And that's also something you have to take a look at, because you do want to make that first landing spot a situation that you think you can improve and you can excel and you can win Super Bowls and have multiple playoff runs. But also at the same time, there's only 32 of these jobs. And if you say to yourself as Kellen Moore, hey, man, I've been around the block so far as an offensive coordinator, had success everywhere. It's time to strike while the iron is hot, because there's no guarantees that he goes back to Philadelphia. Maybe only 2 spots open up next year in the NFL. He doesn't get that one either. Then the season doesn't go. So you see how it goes. It's a good move and a career move. You got paid. If it doesn't work out, he's always going to land on his feet with another OC job, and probably young enough to get another head coaching job and maybe a better situation as well.
So the head coaching carousel has officially stopped spinning. We'll break it down up next.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
The head coaching carousel in the 2025 NFL offseason. 7 openings that have now all been filled by a new head coach to lead an organization moving forward. We are fully in the offseason, all around the National Football League. And for those 7 NFL clubs, DRS, that have been focused on the future of their franchise, here we now stand. All 7 jobs on your screen. The Bears hire Ben Johnson. The Cowboys remain in-house and get Brian Schottenheimer. The Jaguars, after a tumultuous 48-hour window, land on Liam Cohen. The Jets tab former player and first-round pick Aaron Glenn. The Patriots go back to Mike Vrabel. That was the first head coach hired in this cycle. The Raiders turn to the veteran Pete Carroll, and the Saints, the last to hire a new head coach in Kellen Moore. Donnie, now that the coaching carousel this offseason around the National Football League is complete, I could ask you a question I did a couple of weeks ago as we were just waiting on the Saints to make their move. What is your favorite or best head coaching hire in this carousel?
I think it's pretty simple. The rock star here would be the Bears and Ben Johnson. The reason I say that is that's a double win for the Chicago Bears. You pull him out of Detroit, which looks like it's one of those teams that's going to be able to stick around and be a thorn in the side of many teams here in the NFL, and you put him on your team, which means that your offense is supposed to get successful while taking a chunk out of Detroit's offense itself. So my favorite by far was Ben Johnson going from the Lions over to the Bears, because the Bears have all the pieces in place. Decent offensive line, decent tight end, quality wide receivers, a running game, and a future superstar. They think at quarterback, you just needed the right mentality and the right coach to kickstart that offense. And I love the hire of Ben Johnson going to Chicago.
Completely agree. It is still my favorite hire of this cycle as well. And everything Ben Johnson has done since being named the Bears' new head coach only furthers that in my mind. Everything he has said, but words are only so much. You need the actions and, of course, the results, wins and losses in the development of Caleb Williams into 2025. But there is a lot of talent on that roster. Do not forget, Chicago entered this season with a win total of 8.5. The over-juiced at -150. Expected to be a winning team despite having a rookie QB and maybe even be a playoff contender in the NFC. That expectation doesn't drop drastically, DRS, just because they have a first-year head coach. So if we talk about our favorite hire, and I do want to mention Mike Vrabel, who has had great success as a head coach, and I think will do the same with the new evolution of the Patriot way back in Foxborough. Our least favorite hire of this coaching carousel in the 7 names and jobs on that board is what and who?
It's pretty simple. It's Brian Schottenheimer for the Cowboys in a position that you needed a superstar talent to come in with a superstar logo on your helmet. We didn't get that. And I don't care if everybody's comfortable in the building. Sometimes you got to go outside of the building and shake things up. Hey, Dak didn't want a new playbook here. Let's, acquiesce to him and say, you know what? You'll be just fine at this point. Stop the man this year. Sometimes the fans know more than management. Every single person who looked at this, whether you're a Cowboys fan or outside the building as an Eagles fan, a Washington fan, a Rams fan, whoever, we laughed at this. And typically when all the fans laugh together, including the own fan base, it's a bad move. Is that saying Schottenheimer can't work out in Dallas? No, it's not. But there were like Ben Johnson goes to the Cowboys. Watch out for that offense. It's really going to move. Even a Mike Vrabel, hey, steady influence heads to the Dallas Cowboys. That's good. We laughed at McCarthy. He actually had a pretty solid run based on his offense and the overall records, but won nothing when it comes to being in the playoffs and advancing to an NFC championship or a Super Bowl. Everybody looking at Schottenheimer going, well, I hope it works out. And Jerry saying that he took such a big risk on hiring Schottenheimer. What are we even talking about in Dallas at this point? Yeah. By far, the worst head coaching hire, Ben, of the cycle was Brian Schottenheimer.
There's no doubt about it, Donnie. And you feel bad almost for Brian Schottenheimer, a journeyman in the National Football League, of course, with a famous and illustrious last name in terms of head coaching or football roles in the history of the NFL. He has been, Brian Schottenheimer, assistant in some form or fashion for nearly 2.5 decades in the NFL. Over a decade of experience as an offensive coordinator. Finally gets his shot because there are not many openings and jobs available for 32 NFL organizations. But this has nothing to do with Brian Schottenheimer, the individual, the offensive mind, play caller, or potential head coach. It is only on Jerry Jones in a situation in Dallas where Jerry Jones has negated wins and success to stoke his own ego. It's not just me saying that. Look at the record. Have not played in an NFC championship game since 1995. The only NFC team that can say that in all of the conference since the 2010s. College basketball up next.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
What a Tuesday night of college basketball we had all around the country last night on a Tuesday in February, but fewer than 5 weeks remaining until Selection Sunday, and an NCAA tournament bracket is unveiled. Donnie, we are going to see many teams out of the SEC in the big dance in field of 68, as was put on display and has been all season long. Top 15 tilt last night in Lexington, Kentucky. Inside Rupp Arena, number 15, Kentucky, hosting number 5, Tennessee. The Vols were a slight 2.5-point road favorite. Tennessee had won 3 consecutive games. But last night, that came to a close. The Cats, as an underdog, incredibly productive and prolific this year. Kentucky wins outright 75-64, defending their home floor. 5-1 now, DRS, both straight up and against the number for Mark Pope and his Kentucky Wildcats when booked as an underdog this season.
It's hard to win on the road, and it's even harder to win on the road in the SEC against quality competition. You're going to see this on a night-to-night basis, which is why we started out the show, at least me talking about, hey, Tennessee's a top 5 program. Now you see them at 20-5, but all 5 losses coming in conference play shows you how tough this conference actually is. And sometimes it just comes down to the 3-point line. Analyzing this game yesterday, I actually thought Tennessee was the better team. Now, granted, they were going on the road, only a slight favorite at that point, but they had the advantage at the 3-point line because Kentucky doesn't defend the 3-point line and will let you shoot whatever you want from the 3-point line. What just so happens that Tennessee comes in and goes, yeah, we'll take some threes and make 3 out of 18 for 16.7%. On the opposite side, we know Kentucky loves the 3-point shot. They love the volume of the 3-point line, but Tennessee was actually a pretty good defensive team at the 3-point line. How did that work out? 12 of 24, 50% made field goals from the 3-point line for the Wildcats. That was the difference in the game. They win by 11. They blast them. They made 9 more 3-point shots than the Tennessee Volunteers. That'll doom you every time.
24 of 52 field goal attempts for Kentucky last night from deep. That's nearly 50%. It is the style of play that Mark Pope has taken to Lexington, of course, from his time in Provo, and it's when the Cats are at their best. Kentucky entered yesterday, second most efficient offense in all of college hoops against the most efficient defense in Tennessee. Offense won out. It wasn't like Kentucky put up 95 and our total skied over. In fact, 146 in a hook remains under, but it was a Kentucky defense that played pretty well against the Vols. it wasn't as though Tennessee did not have good opportunities or that Kentucky was hounding and swarming, only forcing 9 turnovers. The Vols just couldn't hit anything really from the floor last night. We keep it in the SEC. Another top 25 tilt, this one in Stark Vegas between Florida and Mississippi State. DRS, Florida over the weekend went to Auburn, beat Auburn. The Tigers remain number 1 and were number 1 on Saturday afternoon. The second win for the Gators against the number 1 ranked team in the country this season. How do you follow up such a monumental road upset? You go on the road as an ever so slight dog and get another victory. 81-68 over the Bulldogs in Starkville. Huge victory for Florida, who, by the way, has backed up both of their upsets over the number 1 team in the country with a road win in SEC play just a few days later.
Boy, if you can shoot the three-point shot at volume and make them, Ben, you have such an advantage in college basketball. 14 of 36 on the road for the Florida Gators yesterday from the three-point line. They shot 36 threes. Sometimes you'll see that, Ben, from a losing effort. We're just trying to chuck and duck at the end of the game to try to get back into it. You had a close game at the half, 34-33, with Florida was at a 1-point deficit. And look at that second half on the road against a good defensive club, scored 48 points for an 81-68 victory. And also understand this. Sometimes you look at those points where, yes, 14 three-point shots to 7. You doubled up Mississippi State. But look at the rebounding here. 43 rebounds here for Mississippi State, only 32 for Florida. That just shows how efficient they were from the three-point line. Just hitting that shot, moving on, playing good defense here. Florida's a fun team. Walter Clayton Jr. has been really good. 37 minutes once again yesterday. Took 18 shot attempts, 4 of 12 from the three-point line. He's really the heartbeat for me of the Florida Gators. 8-3 now in conference play. Good basketball club.
Yeah. Really good basketball team, DRS, and certainly not out of the race for the top spot in the SEC. Florida did this yesterday, despite in the opening seconds of the game, one of the most versatile players in all of the country, but certainly in the Southeastern Conference, Alex Condon for Florida, the big Aussie who can do everything, went down with what looks to be a serious ankle injury, and Florida still on the road in that environment picks up a double-digit win. We'll talk about the top of the SEC here just for a moment, Donnie, because we mentioned a couple of trappity-trap spots ahead of maybe the biggest Saturday in the SEC in men's basketball history within that league. Number 1, Auburn. Number 2, Alabama. Both on the road last night as slight favorites, and both make good on those numbers. Both teams winning by double digits. The Tigers in Nashville knocking off Vandy and covering as a 9.5-point favorite. Look at Alabama. 103 points on the road against the Longhorns in Austin. The Tide easily covers as a 4.5-point favorite as well.
Yeah, I really liked Alabama yesterday, even though it was one of those spots as a handicapper you look, and Ben pointed out astutely yesterday, these two teams are going to play. Maybe it's a look-ahead spot. And at home, sometimes you can buffer that. But that was a road game. And for the fact they went and shot 62% as a team, which included 17 of 29 from three-point range. They shot almost 60% from three-point range. And then the free throw line, Ben, 18 of 20 for 90% as a team. I don't care who you're playing, how good the defense is. If that's what your level of ability is on offense at your ceiling, you're going to win a lot of games. And look at that in the SEC. 10-1 overall in the toughest conference in basketball, winning easily by close to 25. That's awesome.
I mean, if you needed stakes for Saturday, 10-1 for both teams, Auburn and Alabama in Tuscaloosa. A bitter rivalry, of course, that we call the Iron Bowl in football. We'll call it the Iron Basketball here between the Crimson Tide and the Tigers. Not only are the two bitter rivals playing for lone supremacy atop the very difficult SEC and taking that number 1 spot, it is 1 versus 2. Our first matchup of the number 1 team in the country and the number 2 team in the country in men's college basketball since November of 2021, nearly 4 years ago. The first ever AP number 1 versus AP number 2 in the history of men's hoops in the SEC. And now the path is clear, DRS, for a monumental Saturday afternoon inside Coleman Coliseum, 4 p.m. Eastern time tip in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, that's a good one. Usually it's secondary to football, but now the SEC really ramping up their basketball action in the state of Alabama, getting a 1-2 tussle. Who would have thought that even 10 years ago at that point, this would even be a possibility, but both teams deserving, and it should be a great, great fight here at this point. And also, what happens if it was the old college football, Ben, we were talking about, like, oh, the loser of this game doesn't even get to go to the field of 64. Now, come on, man. Like, the regular season is meaningless because teams have 4, 5, and 6 losses. We love this in college basketball in February, getting ready for March Madness.
A champion of expansion in the college football playoff, but Donnie Rightside not in favor of expanding the NCAA tournament. Top 20 tilt in the Big Ten last night in Ann Arbor, inside a sold-out Chrysler Center between number 20 Michigan and number 7 Purdue. The Wolverines closing as an ever-so-slight 1.5-point favorite. Donnie, the Boilermakers entering on a roll. In the calendar year 2025, Purdue 10-1. They had covered in 9 of 10 victories. They were 10-3 against the number overall this year in the Big Ten, including a victory on a Friday night in late January inside Mackey Arena, in which the Boilermakers blew out the Wolverines by 27 points. Michigan had other ideas last night, edging out Purdue in the second half and holding on at the bitter end, 75-73. Huge victory for the Maize and Blue at home last night over the Boilers.
Stole 12 extra points from the free throw line. That was enough for a victory to win by 2 for the Michigan Wolverines. And about this, Braden Smith shot 21 times last night for Purdue. An impressive performance. Maybe need a little bit more efficiency here. But Michigan, the better ball club, comes away with the victory. I guess you could call it an upset. Come on now.
Yeah, they were slight favorites at home. But we'll continue to talk about the Big Ten and everything around college hoops up next on the Early Line.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes. End of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
So some shuffling atop the Big Ten after a few very important results last night on a Tuesday around the nation in college basketball. Michigan uses a second-half rally against Purdue and holds on at the end to knock off the Boilermakers. Purdue entered this week atop the Big Ten, 11-2. Michigan just a half game behind in terms of the win column, but now the Wolverines 11-2. And then the Boilermakers fall to 11-3. Entering last night, Michigan State also 10-2, trying to tie their bitter in-state rivals atop the Big Ten with a victory in some history last night inside the Breslin Center in East Lansing. But, Donnie, as we looked at the top two teams on that board and the top two teams in the country, Auburn and Alabama, potentially facing some trap spots, we did not think that would be the case for Michigan State. The Spartans, a double-digit favorite, laying 10.5 at home last night against an Indiana team that no longer has a head coach at the end of this year. Mike Woodson set to step down at the end of this season and entered on a 5-game losing skid. They took a night of history away from Tom Izzo. The Hoosiers winning outright 71-67 in East Lansing.
Yeah, 24 fouls and 18 fouls combined, for looking at both teams here. So it was a free throw fest. 20 of 28 for Indiana, 21 of 25 for Michigan State. But the key came down to just shooting wise. 48% as a team on the road for Indiana, only 38% at home for Michigan State. And it's one of those where if you just gave me one look at the box score, hey, Donnie, Indiana's going to go on the road. They're going to shoot 23% from three-point range, which was 3 of 13. There's no way they win this game. But they actually won this game because, again, Michigan State was worse at the three-point line with 4 of 23, which is madness at that point. That was one of those games I did not expect because of how good Michigan State was playing. And also, we didn't really get an A game from Indiana per se, but they shot well, 24-50 overall and 21 of 55 for Michigan State. You just can't play that poorly and expect to be at least decent basketball teams. But even Michigan State at home, shooting that poorly, probably figured they'd still have enough in the tank to beat Indiana, and that wasn't the case.
The Spartans are the worst Big Ten three-point shooting team in the conference. Indiana not much better, but did enough last night. And it was almost ceremonious, if you will, maybe slightly cosmic. Entering last night, Tom Izzo tied alongside Bob Knight at 353 career Big Ten victories. Tom Izzo's first career Big Ten victory back in January of 1996 over IU, coached by Bob Knight, against Indiana last night at home. Expected to win career Big Ten game 354 to move past Bob Knight. Indiana had other ideas and slowed down some history. Donnie, if you're not paying attention in the Big 12 to Kansas State, you must right now. An incredibly disappointing start to this season. 7-11 for a wildly talented team in the Little Apple. Since then, K-State has rallied. The Wildcats have won 5 in a row, or now make that 6 in a row. They have covered in 9 consecutive games. They went outright against Arizona last night in the Octagon of Doom as a 3.5-point underdog. Donnie, those 6 consecutive victories for the Wildcats, 4 of them have been outright as an underdog. K-State playing its best basketball when it matters most.
And by the way, again, snapshots from the box score. Hey, Donnie, Kansas State's at home. They're playing in the 11-1 in conference, Arizona Wildcats. Oh, Kansas is going to go 1 for 19 from three-point range and beat Arizona? Bet I got to tell you right now, that might be the wildest statistic I've seen from a team beating a quality opponent in my history of looking at college basketball. How's that been? Again, if I would have said unlimited amount of money, Kansas State's going to go 1 of 19 from the three-point range. They're playing Arizona. You would say this is the easy, like, I don't have to work again because of how much money I'm going to make. How could you win a basketball game at 1 of 19? Incredible. Why? Arizona, 2 of 22. What were the rims made of last night? I don't know. Did they have spikes on them? My goodness.
So that was going to be my follow-up question. I would ask you, what did Arizona shoot from 3 if that was the case? 2 of 22. 41 attempted threes last night between the two sides, and they made 3 of 41. The Octagon of Doom, man. It can be something.
Man.
Elsewhere in the SEC, A&M wins at home, 8.5-point favorite against Georgia, 69-53. Big victory for the Aggies. They're doing some great things right now under Buzz Williams. But, Donnie, our final point, Connecticut and Creighton, Blue Jays, winners of 9 in a row. The best cover team in conference play in all of college basketball this year. Entered 11-1-1 against the spread, 3.5-point home favorite against the Huskies on dollar beer night inside the clinic. CHI Health Center in downtown Omaha. And there's a little bit of vitriol between the Creighton fan base and that of Dan Hurley that we saw at the end of last night. UConn wins on the road by 4, outright as a 3.5-point dog. And as Dan Hurley was walking off the court last night, DRS, blowing kisses to the Creighton fans still in attendance. And basically, we'll get back to Liam McNeely in just a second. Basically, DRS, if we can go back to me here, Dan Hurley looked at the crowd and said, 2 rings, 2 rings. Dan Hurley, man, he can talk the talk with the best of them.
That's what you need, specifically when your team is now outside the top 25. Got to get those juices going at that point here. But by the way, I had the under in this basketball. I had lost my last 2 unders in college basketball, team total and a total itself, 70-66. Loved to see that final score last night. But that's a nice win for the UConn Huskies on the road against a pretty good Creighton basketball team.
And over half the points scored by Connecticut from the outstanding freshman in Liam McNeely, who returned to the lineup against St. John's on Friday. Had not played since New Year's Day prior to that. Missed over a month for the Huskies and scored 38 and had 10 boards, making 5 triples and was 12 of 22 from the floor. Big victory for Connecticut. National championship odds at this juncture, DRS. Auburn still the favorite at plus 430. 20 cents in front of Duke, plus 450. Blue Devils in action tonight. And Alabama rounds out the top 3 at an 8-1 price.
Love it. Love to see it here. Getting some good parity up at the top of the standings. As we noted yesterday, the SEC becoming a big player now with an advantage moving forward. Look, we're 3 weeks away, Ben. March Madness is here. You got to get those pencils sharpened, baby. Come on.
March Madness in terms of conference championships, about 4.5 from Selection Sunday.
Real March.
3 of the top 5 prices to win the Natty from the SEC to the NBA next.
Slow play, drum beat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
But if it ends up being 1 versus 2, which seems likely because the Cavs had a 5.5 game lead over Boston, the Celtics 3 games clear of the New York Knicks.
They're not unstoppable, not running away with everything, but for them to blow a 5.5 game lead on the backstretch in the NBA, already being a quality team outside of disastrous injuries, I don't buy that at this time.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Around the association we go, only a 4-game night in the NBA on a Tuesday, but still plenty to break down. We start in Phoenix, in the Valley. a celebratory night for the individual in Kevin Durant. Game's leading scorer against the Grizzlies. He had 34 points to get over 30,000 in his NBA career, becoming the 8th player ever in the history of the association to score 30K points in his NBA career. But Donnie, the individual can only do so much if the team kind of stinks. And that's where Phoenix is right now. Memphis winning on the road, 119-112. Was it an upset that spoiled a celebratory night? No. The Grizzlies were booked as a 4.5-point road favorite and covered that number. Memphis, best cover team in the NBA. 35-18 against the spread. 24-11 ATS as a favorite. Also the best cover team booked as a favorite in the NBA this year. Phoenix, the worst cover team. Now 18-34-1 against the number. We saw that all on display last night.
Yeah, we did. And yesterday, I liked the Grizzlies yesterday, covering as a favorite. Well, either the better basketball team. The Suns not going anywhere, not having a surge. Like, oh, they're playing better as of late. That's not the case. And also at the trade deadline, like the questions were swirling around. Like, Kevin Durant, would he accept the trade to get out of there, maybe go with the contender? No. I want to stay in Phoenix, as if it was going to get better. Now, they still have a lot of talent on that roster. There's no meshing for the final 30 games of the season. But when they do get to the playoffs, if Kevin Durant can put up games like 34 points, maybe they have a chance. But then you say, well, he put up 34 points at home last night and still weren't able to get a win or even a cover against the Memphis Grizzlies, one of the better teams in the Western Conference. It's all bad for the Suns. And Ishbia comes in and buys that team. And as a fan, you had to get excited. Like, hey, man, I got unlimited funds. Let's put a superstar roster together. We're going to sell it out now for the future. Who knows? And it hasn't worked out. So I don't think the fans can be upset with the Suns' direction because an owner that wants to win. It just didn't work out when you expected it probably to be one of those teams that will be a top 3 team, Ben, over the next 5 years, regardless of what happens. It just didn't work out. And sometimes that happens.
Now, I'm not going to make an overarching statement here that maybe the idea of the super team era has kind of come to a close. But, Donnie, we are seeing homegrown nucleuses have much better success in either conference. You look at the top team in the Eastern Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder, these Memphis Grizzlies, now second in the Western Conference standings, looking to be the 2 seed out west for the 3rd time in the last 4 years. Of course, the Boston Celtics, the reigning NBA champs in the Eastern Conference. The Cavs, the acquisition of Donovan Mitchell, but keeping him in place this offseason to go along with guys like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. That has been incredibly beneficial as well. The Suns have that star power, just not working at this moment. Season ended today, DRS. The Suns will be on the outside looking in, even at the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. To have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal in your organization and that be your reality is almost unthinkable. Big matchup last night in Indianapolis, a rematch of last year's second round of the postseason in the Eastern Conference playoffs, where the Pacers won in 7 games over the Knicks. Last night, New York gets some revenge. 128-115, the victory for the Knicks on the road, led by 40 points and 12 boards from Karl Anthony Towns, 30 points and 10 boards from Josh Hart. Big performance last night for the Knicks to pick up the victory in Indy. New York covers as a 2.5-point favorite.
Like, what did we see at the end of last year? The New York Knicks basically playing 5 to 6 guys in the playoffs, and it was all Brunson. Can Brunson get 35-plus? Otherwise, we can't win. Isn't it nice to go on the road against a quality opponent, and Brunson gets 8 points, and you still win by double digits because you brought in, and what a trade that was. Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle. I mean, my goodness. Like, Minnesota not having a great season. Is it all Karl Anthony Towns? We don't know. But Karl Anthony Towns headed to the Knicks and dropping it like 40, 12, 5, and 3 last night. That is absolutely incredible. And we liked the Knicks yesterday, even with that line, 2.5 to 3.5. I thought they'd win by 5+ points, won by double digits. Great win for the Knicks on the road against a quality Pacers team.
The Knicks now a favorite in 47 of 53 games this year. They are 25-21-1 ATS, one of 8 teams around the association with a 52% cover percentage as a favorite or better. In the 3rd best record, Donnie, out in the Eastern Conference, 35-18. You mentioned Jalen Brunson. 8 points in only 23 minutes. Maybe you're thinking, did he get injured or something? No, just was in terrible foul trouble all night against the Pacers, who remain one of the best teams as an underdog in the NBA. 12-10 ATS, now 11-11 outright and straight up. The Pacers not in a bad spot, 29-23 in that 4 spot in the Eastern Conference standings. Maybe some more matchups in the postseason ahead. Hour number 2 ahead here on SportsGrid.